Thank you guys for joining us. It's that time, Fired Up Friday, and as always, there's a lot of stuff on the list to get us fired up about. So thank you guys for joining Tip and I. Send us some hearts, send out, share the live, bring other people in. And I think I'm still learning about the Substack algorithm kind of thing. But I think if you guys hit that heart button, it kind of brings us up, brings the algorithm up. So give us some love. And Tiff and I are here, of course, again on Fired Up Friday, and there is just so much, so much. And I love talking to Tiff because I mean we know that each other knows what's going on, that we're keeping up with things, that we have reliable sources. We both have kind of different areas that we kind of really hyper focus on. I love that Tiff really gets into polls and surveys and things like that. I tend to dig more into historical connections and things like that. So I think we bring a full course meal in our conversation here with our various areas. And I would like to start, Tiff, kind of, I know there's of course we have elections going on. Like we are hoping and praying and preparing for, the big midterm elections next year. But in the meantime, in between time, we have elections going on all across the country. I too have elections going on here in my state because one of our U.S. reps, Mark Green, resigned to take a job, making more money, and
Right.
which ain't hard to do because I mean they really don't make a lot in the scheme of things. But the primary voting started this week here for that in District 7. And I was just looking this morning at um, a story about how really the turnout is kind of low, and it's not surprising to anyone because here in our state, like we know that there's gerrymandering going on all across the country. And what I think is interesting, because I've been talking about this for about 5 years on these socials about things. In Tennessee in 2023, they did to Nashville what they're trying to do to Missouri now, carve up the city. And that accounts for a lot of voter suppression, voter apathy. And I know you have elections going on there in your state, and you've been doing some events and things. So I want you to talk a little bit about the elections going on in your area. And I definitely want to talk about that program that you were invited to kind of spotlight because I think that's important. So,
Yeah, so Maryland, we don't, so on odd years, we don't have any, obviously, we don't have any special elections going on. All of our county executives, all of our local leaders, all of our governors, obviously the governor, and our county executives, all are on even years. So every 4 years on even years. But we do have local races. So Annapolis is the town that's like not too far from me. They actually have a mayor's race going on. They have local races for the city. So they have a few things going on there. So that's really the main focus here. But we are gearing up for 2026. Like that's what we are trying to do with the Maryland Democratic Party is um trying to get ready. And so they had me and Kenny on, which is too raw too real, just to kind of talk through
I
like content and what it is that we do because we want to help them in any way possible. And
right.
I think the goal of talking through it is like, listen, if you need help, reach out to us. We can try to do whatever we can to do. And I actually did that interview on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I went to the Maryland Serves. So Maryland Serves has a program, the Department of Service, I think it's continuity, has their program for students. So it's not students per se, but it's young people. And
Mhm.
they get every person. has the opportunity in the state to apply to even it doesn't matter if you're even if you're 50 years old, you could be there. You just have to be over 18. So there are older people in this program too that can join if you want to, learn a new trade or want to be able to get involved in service in the state. So they have this program. It's called the service year program. And so I went to their launch event for their third year. So this is the third year. This was a program that Governor Westmore he promoted when he was, running for office in 2022. He was gung ho about this. He's like, we got to do this. And so it was nice to be able to see this was the first class that had over 850 people. The first class had about 250 people. So this obviously is growing. They had about 3,500 applicants. And it was just so nice to see these young people excited for this opportunity to be able to do something positive, make money. This is not an internship per se. They make over $15 an hour. So it is a job for 9 months. And hopefully you can stay on and be able to get hired. But at least you're earning some and gaining some sort of experience that you could take into the private sector or the nonprofit sector and be able to work. And at the end of the program, you also gain a $6,000 check. So this is something that will give them exposure and be able to get into the workforce. And most of the people that are in the program, they are not in college. They are, I think about 70% were not college students. So this is giving them an opportunity to be able to kind of join the workforce and get connections and be able to um, do something that they want to do. And there's different levels to it. So one of the ones was I don't have it in front of me, but it was an opportunity to work with like government services to be able to help people when they want to apply for like Medicaid and be able to help them fill out applications. So they're in the community. They're actually in the community. They will be helping people. And it was four young men that I met and I had a good time with them because I was like, can I take your picture? And they're like, I had to tell them who I was. I was like, oh, I'm Kenley Tiff. I have, so of course, young people, they make me laugh. They're like, how many followers do you have? You're a content creator. So I'm like, okay, so the one, the
The
one,
important things.
the one young kid, he was like, what's your Instagram? So he went and found my Instagram, but I put it in his phone. He was like, I tried something there. He was like, you're talking too fast. So I pulled it up in his phone, and when I pulled it up in his phone, he said, oh, you got 1,700 people that are following you. I said, yeah, but that's not even my like real big account. I don't really have a big account on Instagram. But then he looked through my pictures, and like one of the top pictures that I had there, pinned up, was me and the governor. And he was like, "Oh, you know the governor?" But young kids are funny. So it was a good experience just to see them. But it was so diverse, lots of mostly young people. They come from all the different counties within Maryland, 24 counties we have. So some were from the Eastern Shore, some were from Western Maryland, some were from Southern Maryland, or, all over. And it was just nice to be able to see something positive happening. There's so much negativity that is happening out there. So, and this was the day after, obviously, that Charlie Kirk got shot. So it was or assassinated. And so it was like, it was heavy. Like there was a lot of heaviness in the room. Like no one really knew what to say. And of course, the governor was there. He
Right.
was, he was trying to, strike the right chord and say the right thing and still give some kind of encouragement because it was a hard day. I mean, I actually was filming the podcast that we did the day of. Well, as soon as we finished, we saw the news, and Kenny and I were together. We walked out, and we were dumbfounded. We didn't even know, excuse me, what to say, or we were shell shocked. I mean, how
Mhm.
how else? I think most people felt like that day. So
Yeah.
we really didn't know how to react. I mean, obviously, no one, you never want to see somebody, and then to have video of it happening was really hard. And as content creators, we get threats all the time. Like I get threats so many times from people. I pay them no mind, but
I have witnessed them sometimes.
yeah,
So,
exactly. So you get
mm,
people saying stupid stuff, and so it kind of hits a little bit harder because you're like, damn, they could, not that I'm anywhere near any kind of level, but you just never know that somebody could hate you. Somebody could hate you and decide that you're not what they want to hear, what they want to see, and figure out where you are and harm you. So I think that was the hardest part. And then that day I got on Mike's that it was like a crazy day. I came home and we were supposed to talk about Kamala and the book and Biden, and then but that was the day that Charlie got shot, and so I ended up getting on Mike's Substack Live, and for
Yes, I
that
caught
was
that. Yes.
that was a tough conversation for me because again, I don't like Charlie Kirk, but I also understood like the gravity of the moment, so I wasn't gonna be like, me my normal self. I had to, kind of toe the line a little bit in terms of like, because in some aspects there is that empathy factor to it because no one wants to see that. No one wanted to have to witness that. And then there's also like this was not a great person. So there was had to be like a little bit of a balance in that moment. And even so I still don't like to talk about it. I think there's just so
Yeah,
much.
it's and I feel because, of course, it was really a heavy day. And I had just gotten out of my Blue Tennessee board meeting and the news broke. And so we were kind of in our Slack channels going back and forth. And, at that point, we didn't know, like that he was dead. It was just the news that he had been shot. But it's just a horrific thing to, again, know that it's actually not new for this country. You know what
Right,
I'm saying? It's like it's kind of become the norm for this country, and we're the only country where this kind of stuff continuously happens. And so I of course, just with the weight of these last 8 months and everything, I
mhm,
felt like the weight's starting to weigh on me, like all of it. And I really pulled out, I unplugged a lot from the socials and stuff. For one, I did not want to watch that video because I am not one to watch graphic things like that. I am a very empathic person.
right,
And so things like that. Weigh heavily on me, even not seeing any of it. I mean, it was still
right,
I feel it in my body. But I feel like, on Monday in the Good Trouble chat, what I try to, tell people to do, there are ways to talk about the real problem, which is gun violence in this country, without ever mentioning that individual's
right,
name, without ever mentioning that particular incident because there are so many. And just like with the kind of militarizing of our American streets that is kind of becoming normalized or whatever. One of the cities that has a horrific problem with gun violence is Memphis, of course, in my state. And now also he is trying to bring the military into the streets of Memphis and Nashville. And I was really, like I said, I wrote a Substack about it because, again, even with the militarization that's going on before that particular incident happened in Utah, what we need people to understand that this is not about them actually solving the problem of crime or gun violence. It's about them using it to really further their oppressive, dangerous agenda. And in fact, the way they are going about it, they are kind of emboldening some of these behaviors with people. And we need to point out when we talk about it, I think it's important. Like I can speak to it, and I wrote a Substack on it. Like evidence that they don't want to solve it. We had a mass shooting here, in 2023. It took the governor 3 days to even address it, that it happened. Andy Bashir, our neighboring state, addressed it before our own governor did. And then I think he was shamed into like, you need to do something or, have a backbone, address this in some way strongly. So he called a special session, and in that special session, he never showed up. Like he was out with other people, and that became apparent. And after it was all said and done, they didn't pass anything around gun violence except that they put a law in to take to give tax breaks to people who wanted to buy gun lock boxes and stuff, and encourage. So not really addressing it. And then fast forward like a year later, Memphis again, Shelby County, still trying to address those issues, pass some ordinances for their county. And what did the state do? They threatened to withhold funds from them for trying to address their safety problem, their crime problem. So, the hypocrisy needs to continually be pointed out, and like what who they're really protecting. Because when they didn't pass any kind of gun prevention, common sense gun laws, but what they did do is pass a law to give gun manufacturers an immunity here. And they have passed many laws to make, um, make them more lax. And there is a survey that's been done by a think tank here, and they talked about like some of these organizations that really kind of focus on gun violence, like what is it, Every Town or
Every time, yeah. Every time.
yes, and then there's another one, the name escapes me, but that they point out the correlation to like high levels of gun violence being around areas that have lax gun laws.
Right.
You know,
No, it makes sense.
okay,
I mean, yeah, I mean, all of that makes sense. W- And it, listen, the gun laws definitely could be strengthened. There should be no, there's all these arguments about, what should happen. The first gun law that we've had in 25 years was passed by Joe Biden. I mean, and
yes,
and and the Democrats, right? I mean, we have yet to make any kind of progress. Of course, states have their own rules on guns, and we are seeing kind of what that looks like as we move forward. I mean, people are just readily able to get guns, and a lot of these people that are committing a lot of these mass shootings and a lot of these shootings, they don't have a criminal record, so they will easily pass a background check. So even if you strengthen that, if you have a mind that wants to harm people, so they say, oh, it's not the guns. Yes, it's the guns plus the people. Like these two go hand in hand. They're not.
yeah,
You can't. No. Yes, the gun is not going to be able to be shot unless somebody puts their finger on the trigger. But it is the fact that they're like, oh, it's mental health. Okay, but why are we letting people be so easy to get guns? Like this is also, and again, some of this is not something
yeah.
that could have been stopped, or but I think of like the
You
amount of
can mitigate
effort,
it.
yeah, the amount of effort they're spending on ICE and the amount of effort they're spending on a lot and resources that they're spending, you know, to to do all of these things that they're doing with immigration. If they put some of these resources in to be able to kind of curb some of this, like the guns. Where are people getting the guns from? Some of them are illegal, right? You want to try to stop that. This is something that people have been working on for years. So I just feel like we waste so many resources and so much time and not focusing on the main issue. And even with this whole situation, it's like it's the right, it's the left, it someone died. Someone was able to access a gun, someone pulled the trigger, and we are here. It's the person did this. It's not a right or a issue. This is not what does it really matter? But it's easy to point fingers and to blame rather than look at the actual issue and try to figure out like what is wrong. Just because you are like the kids, well, the guy, his mom is like, oh, well, he was more pro-gay and more, that doesn't make you want to go kill somebody. Like that is something in your head that said, okay, let's go do this. Like that, just because those two things don't correlate. So it's a lot. There's just so much that is happening. And it's frustrating to just hear it the whole week. Oh, it's a radical leftist. I'm like, first of all, there are people on the left that don't even know what a radical leftist is. You
It,
know,
yes, they are politicizing it with all this language on purpose. Yeah.
yeah, people say things like when I say somebody is a leftist, I mean that because I know what I'm talking about. Like there's a distinction between a liberal and a leftist, and we have different ideas around certain issues, like maybe Medicare for all or socialism. But
Hmm.
nonetheless, we we may agree on 80%
Yeah,
of
because
all the other things, but people that are radical leftists, as they like to say, that's a whole nother realm over there. These are people that think they are revolutionaries, that they are going to, tear down the government and make it with something totally different. And I did a whole video on this on TikTok, and it just drives me crazy because what I have come to the conclusion is no matter what Trump says, when they are talking about radical leftist liberals, they are talking about anyone who is not MAGA. It's MAGA or nothing else. Like that, that's what it is. It doesn't matter how you identify. It's not even about Democrat or Republican. Listen to them. It's not. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's either you're MAGA, you're with them, it's a cult, or you're against them. And if you don't
yeah.
even have to have radical ideas, your ideas could be somewhat like I think people are on most people are on a somewhat of a spectrum when it comes to policy and ideas they have around how they think about
Hmm.
social programs or how they think about people like certain rights that people have. So there's an array of thoughts on how
Right.
people think, right? Some people are more care more about like the fiscal side, but they are socially more progressive. And so you have different people who are everyone on the left is not a radical. Like we're
Right.
not radical. Like what are you even talking about? And I don't even think that I think on the same side there are people who are on the right, like a George Conway or what's the other guy? The not Joe Walsh. All these
Yes.
people that used to be Michael Steele, like that are Republicans, but I don't consider they're not MAGA, right? So I don't there you can't paint people with this broad brush of what you think that they are, but that's what MAGA does, right? I mean, that's what they do.
Yes, and that's intentional because they're trying to create this us versus them, this kind of extreme polarization that really foments and makes, the ground more fertile for this kind of behavior. It's also a kind of conditioning and thing that's being done. And yes, like Gwen said in the chat, because when they try to point to it being mental health issues or whatever, again, they have no desire to solve these problems because if they did, they wouldn't be taking away services that would provide care for mental health.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just a convenient, ready excuse for them to continue to stoke kind of vitriol, painting their opponents as um, demons. I mean, sometimes even they've got these ministers and stuff um, who are literally saying that. I have one here next door to me in the next county. He was featured in the film Bad Faith, and so what we have here is also white supremacy and Christian nationalism being the basic agendas, but they all have kind of different factions within them. And some of those, like you said, some of them in that faction, they are nihilists, essentially.
Yeah.
They want, like, even in the Christian nationalism aspect of it, there are some who believe in this kind of doomsday, end of world kind of thing. And they believe like it's their Christian duty to witness it or to help it come about. Like they're being godly. That's an extreme faction within that Christian nationalism. But then some of them, they just want everything to be ran and ruled by Christians or whatever, and they don't have those kind of extreme things. And I feel like this administration is not trying to be nuanced about this.
Oh, well, I mean, come on. Look at the guy in the White House. He has no such thing. He barely has brain function at this point. He's a hot mess. But I do think that what we did learn in the last week is about all these different factions, even within MAGA, right? There you have
Yes,
like I don't think most people on, most of us like we are pretty savvy and we kind of know like a lot about what's going on. But even I have been surprised to learn about so many different groups of these different people on the right. Like the Groypers, and you have like all these other different groups. And I'm like, what in the hell is happening? Like I never realized how deep the gamers are like into some of
yes,
this stuff. Like it kind of blew my mind last week as I'm like they want a civil war, but they better watch out the civil war is not in between their different factions who are trying to come. And then you have like Candace Owens and all these different people who are just making up conspiracies about what is going on. So they are just fighting. We talk about infighting on the Dem side, but they have their own infighting on the right. We
yeah,
just are not in tune to it because we kind of mind our business. We got enough stuff going on over here that we're not focused on what's going over there. But I think that kind of shed a light this week on what is happening on that side. And it's
yeah,
probably going to get even worse because this person who did this was kind of all over the place, it seems. And I think that's what makes me mad about the whole situation is a lot of these people like you said, that are nihilists. I call them deranged nihilists.
yes,
Violent. They're very violent. That they use violence to get their point across. They hate living here. They hate being in this society. They hate people, and they want destruction. They want to destroy. That is their
yeah.
goal, right? So you can
Tear it
be
all
you
down.
you can be a nihilist and not and just be in your own crazy world over there. But I feel
Your
like
own
some of
bubble.
these people are actually more deranged, which then leads to violence and destruction. And so you now have to now how do you address that? Like, but if you're gonna ignore the facts of the case to then put it on the left and not address that this person may have and as we know, the motive says that they hated this person. If they hated this person, the question was why. And there's multiple reasons at this point, and because the person was such a bad person that yeah, you understand why they hated them. But it doesn't excuse what the person did because no one should be shot in cold blood like that. Like that's just where we are. And it's just a whole as I think through it, it makes me more mad because again, we're not addressing the real root cause of the issue. And there's multiple in these cases. And I am just like it just goes
Well,
in one ear and out the other at this point.
yes, and you're right. And what people need to be aware of, the reason that, I had the talk that I did and the trouble chat, I didn't do kind of like news updates and things, is because it's being used to actually further their agenda in a swift manner, because the silencing of speech is what they are weaponizing his death, and anyone who speaks to it. Like, I had encouraged people not to opine on it. I was like, if you feel like it, like I haven't even addressed it at all on my timeline. I'm not. And the reason is because people need to understand the danger. And it's not about not being afraid, or, yeah, you can type some stuff out online, but when you have a White House with the power of the government, behind it, willing to target people, whether it's right or wrong, but willing to do that over making comments about someone who is not a government official. You know what I'm saying? And when they tell you this, from their government platforms, you need to pay attention. Because for me, it's not about this guy because there are so many more other than him. Okay. It's about the issue and it's about me really being able to continue to have a voice and to speak to it. Is, I'm not trying to get taken out or get my platform crushed over a
Yeah, well,
snarky comment or something,
yeah, I mean, like, and I said that too. That day when I was on with Mike, I'm like, guys, you got to use like common sense here. Like,
Yes.
if you're gonna say something, don't include like the person's name. Like, you can say it without saying it. And so there's ways to kind of get your message across without necessarily naming someone or you know that they're watching. So watch what you say, and even listen if you want to say something there's group chat, there's DM, there's your phone, go
Mhm.
message somebody. Like you don't have to verbalize everything online because again, this is a digital footprint and why why even give them the ammunition is where I'm at. Like people today, people are mad. So let me just address this because people are mad. You know how I feel about the Senate. You know, I love talking about the Senate. But people were mad because they named like some kind of like day of remembrance or something like that. And the Senate it passed unanimously. First of all, people don't even understand how the Senate works, right? So of course, if you see the
They
headline
pass
and
resolutions all the time
right, so if
for
you
all kinds of things.
right, so if you see the headline is like the Senate unanimously passes, resolution for a said person, and people are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." But instead of just actually like understanding how this works, okay, most these commemorative resolutions only need 51 votes. So if a Democrat gets up there and objects, which they have the right to object when they've asked for unanimous consent, they now object to it. And what happens is they would have to go to a roll call. It would pass no matter what. They have 53 votes. So you will get now you're putting senators in a position where they would have to like record their vote on it.
Right,
It was all a game. This is a game to Republicans. They don't care about this guy. This is
right.
all a game to them. Now in the House, you can't avoid that. In the House, they have to do a roll call. So we had Democrats today who voted no, and they were not whipped in any kind of way. Hakeem and leadership said, vote your conscience, do whatever you want to do. Some voted yes, some voted no, and some voted, not present. So, or they weren't even present for the vote. I think most were, but they just didn't vote for it. So why would you do that to the people in the Senate when you know that we have a bunch of races that need to be held next year? Winning statewide is very hard. Don't put people in that position. It was done on purpose as a trick to see and put where Democrats are on the record. We do this too on our end, right? We have played this game too where we have put Republicans on the record, but you don't in the Senate it just didn't make sense. So again, this is about process and Schumer knows the vote count. Like they have enough votes, and there were probably Democrats that would have voted yes to it because people are going to vote their conscience. So sometimes you
Yes.
gotta like. Sometimes some of these fights are not what I cared about more today in terms of a fight is the shutdown. The
Exactly.
Senate actually filibustered the continuing resolution. That's where you take your vote. You
Right.
take
And
your
I
vote
was
on
happy.
something like that. Yeah.
Something that matters. And like I was talking to my friend overseas, he was actually asking, he was like, are the Democrats going to stop it? Are they going to shut it down this time or whatever? And I said, I don't know. I kind of think so. I'm hoping that they will, because I mean, before the rationale was that, like, they're already doing a lot of awful things. They're stopping funds and flowing anyway. So why not do it? But the House held strong. But Schumer made the decision that he made. I didn't agree with it, but I understand. I mean, like sometimes, I mean, I know that he knows more about, these processes than I do, than we do.
Yeah,
But
and
I
there's
did
a lot of back stuff. There's like a lot of things happening that, and well, the problem I have with Schumer is not necessarily process, it's communication. I've always said the same with Hakeem Jeffries. Like I have
Yeah,
issues with
if
his
he had
communication.
spoken to it in
But
a
I
way,
rather, but I also rather him not speak sometimes. Like last time he spoke too much and then he got himself in trouble. This time looks like there was no talk about what they were going to do. Today they just filibustered that crap. And so
yeah,
now it's on the Republicans to try to, because Trump said he doesn't want them to negotiate with us. Or with, and
hmm
I say us, I mean the Democrats. He doesn't want a
right.
negotiation. So they said, okay, well, you don't want a negotiation. Well, we're just gonna block your damn bill
Yeah,
and
and
resolution.
if you don't negotiate with us, you can't blame it on us because you can't blame us for just saying yes to something you're wanting to shove down our throat and not talk to us
Exactly.
about it. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and then
uh,
and now here comes now this is where the messaging matters, right?
right.
You have now filibustered it. So now you have to go out there and tell people this is the Republicans' fault. They did not negotiate with us. You don't do it beforehand. You just block that bad boy. And now you go out and explain why you are not going to vote for this unless they give you X, Y, and Z. This is how you do unfortunately, this is how we have to play politics in this era,
Mhm.
which is
Yeah,
annoying. But this is what we have to
right.
do. So I will
Especially
really
when
see.
you're not in a majority in either house.
Right. And also, from what I understand, Republicans are ready to go on recess. So they are not even going to be in the Capitol next week. We'll see. They might change their mind, but they were saying they were going on recess. So they were going on recess next week, come back the 29th. There's still no continuing resolution. So if there's no continuing resolution and they try to do the same thing over again, and Democrats, guess what? The government is going to shut down. You know how many days we have until then? We have one, two, three, four. We have like 8 days. No, I guess like that's like 10 days at this point to be able within the 19th. We have the till the 30th. So 11 days, including a recess and a weekend and weekends to be able to figure this out. That is
Yeah.
this is not on Democrats. We don't run the government. You guys need to come to the table. The reason why Democrats, so just for the people that are listening, the reason why Democrats are against this, because they what they wanted was a clean continuing resolution, which was would have just funded the government using the continuing resolution from March. Mind you, they had 6 months to figure this out. What Democrats are trying to get is the ACA subsidies in this continuing resolution because people are going to have up to a 75% increase on their if they are in the on the exchange, they are going to have to pay way more than what they are paying now. And those renewals are coming up. So you will have renewal letters going out to participants within the next 2 or 3 weeks, showing that they are paying, if they haven't received them already, saying that their insurance is going to cost double, maybe even up to 75% more than what they are paying today. And then Mike Johnson is like, oh, we can hold this off. He's like, pass it and we'll work on this in November. What in November? So you have to give people an opportunity, a chance to be able to pay for these things. Like money does not grow on trees and people are already struggling financially. And they're like, oh, it's only a small amount of people. It's millions of people, whether it's two or one, it's still millions of people that this will impact. So it's just the callousness of the way that they think that they're like, oh, we're just going to move on. I get to go on my recess. I have my insurance. I have my insurance through the exchange and who cares about you guys? Like it's so rude and so non-caring, but this is how these people roll because they don't have anything to worry about. Meanwhile, everything is more expensive. I'm going on a rant, but this is the stuff that drives
Yes,
me insane.
I understand, and I have my moments like that too. But it really is important, and it is important for us to help them with that messaging, help in like people who have platforms like yourself and Kenny and others, so that people really do understand what's at stake. And I'm just really kind of proud that I feel like the Democrats are starting to understand they need to use different. Mechanisms to distribute their messaging. And so that was one of the reasons why I loved it, that I saw you and Kenny with the, Maryland Dems or whatever. And one of the things I just put in the chat, kind of changing subjects here a little bit, but kind of all flows together. I was really happy because um, we talk about needing to come together and to fight, like needing coalitions, broad coalitions. And I put a link to a YouTube channel, which is a press conference that the Memphis City Council members held yesterday, and it's about them pushing back on the National Guard being brought here. It's about our governor lying, like he, straight said that no, he wasn't going to do it. He hadn't talked to the administration. That was like the last week in August, and then like fast forward a week later, he said he's been in talks with them for months, and yes, they are coming. And what's interesting, again, like I said, there are nuances to these things. It's not the first time that that's happened in Memphis, first of all. And I know most people recognize that Memphis is where Martin Luther King was killed when they were garbage workers were on strike. And in the late 70s, they were there again for, I can't even remember, but again, it was another strike. There's just a lot, that's where, Ida B. Wells comes from Memphis, reporting on the things there. So they have a kind of spirit about them. And I loved that even though they have a black progressive mayor. I've talked about this before, and this is an area where I can rant because that is also where Elon has chosen to take his AI company. He has ignored the people in the community. He's thrown a few dollars at some schools. Meanwhile, he's still polluting the neighborhoods that he's in, his businesses in, which is largely Black and brown communities. And so now they want to bring the military in there. And it is, again, not about solving crime. It's not about making things better because, again, it is a largely um, Black population there. And when you talk about the money, the budget, and things, they don't get the same thing that other cities get. Like, and it's not because of size or whatever. It's like they are purposely, um, things are purposely withheld from them because they don't want them to succeed. Just like we have, I no, 3 to 5 HBCUs in Tennessee, they too do not get funded in the same way that like TSU and UT, they're both land grant schools. They don't get the same funding, even though they're the same technically kind of university. So it's about calling out the hypocrisy, the lie that it's not about trying to help. Them going in is about them trying to control and to clamp down on a city whose resources they want, but whose people they do not want to help. Because not only is Elon, encroaching on the land and the population there, Ford had already done it because they made a big deal with them and they're moving there. That before Elon came in, that was one of the state's largest projects. And they are doing things to these neighborhoods that are not helpful, pushing innovation and expansion and things at the expense of Black and brown people. And that is just something that I want to continue to remind people of. And these data centers are issues that are going to be happening all over the country in
Oh, it
different
is.
places.
Yes.
And the reason I put that link in the chat is because when they had their press conference, it was, I don't know, about 6 or 7 different organizations that were coming together, the ACU, ACLU, Black Lives Matter. Of course, there were some local officials that were there, but just an array of different organizations, coalitions coming together. And we really kind of have to think like that in a larger way and at a national level. Um, when it comes to kind of saving our democracy and keeping people informed and moving forward, because people need to understand that this is an inflection point, a very dangerous one, that them using Charlie Kirk is very, this is me going into my history nerd kind of thing, is very reminiscent of Germany and Hitler. They used a young man who was kind of a essay, his stormtrooper folks, not really a nice guy, death, to kind of immortalize him, to make him a saint in order to clamp down on free speech and movement for people. So again, like, people need to understand what they're doing and how they're doing it. Just this one last part of my rant, and I'm going to let you go. Um, and they are weaponizing churches, like, this Christian nationalism, because he actually had another sister organization that he formed, to Turning Point USA, Turning Point USA Faith. And he did that about the same time that the Heritage Foundation created Project 2025. And he and Mike Flynn went on a national tour. I think it was called Reawaken America, where they were specifically going to churches, recruiting people, and, feeding this MAGA, agenda. And basically, just like they had the list of the teachers at universities, not having this woke agenda, they have ministers on their list that if they didn't allow this political
Oh wow.
conversation to take place in their church, that they would be gone. And so people need to understand there is a larger purpose at play here, toward authoritarianism, that it's like being echoed. I mean, some of the things we can point to that happened in recent history, and people kind of need to not get caught up in these little fights, and, especially online kinds of things, to understand where they're taking us. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that in, this conversation that we had today, because I feel like sometimes people, they again continue to frame the narrative, and people are fighting what they say, and not, like, because that's what they want. They want to get you caught up in these arguments that are never going to go anywhere, because, what they're professing is not even the truth of the matter. They want you arguing their lies. And I just don't want to see people wasting a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing. Listen, it's true. There's so many parallels to history and what Trump does and how he does it. And we saw that this week with Jimmy Kimmel. They're trying to silence the media. They're trying to silence entertainers. They Trump literally out of his mouth is saying that anyone that is against him or criticizes him basically needs to be kicked off the air. I mean, they're coming for The View. They're coming for anyone that is can oppose him in any kind of way. Even a simple criticism will they will threaten and use to try to withhold. And these billionaires, companies, these executives, they they're scared, so they are not pushing back. Even if they wouldn't, they would side with Trump to avoid the drama. But
They're
really, it
obeying in
seems
advance.
yeah, and yeah, exactly. It's obeying. Like you said, obeying is the right word. They're obeying in advance without even New York Times. We've seen like all these different companies, CBS, ABC with George Stephanopoulos. Like we've seen how Trump can use intimidation to be able to to shut people up. And now we're seeing this also here in Maryland because today Sean Duffy, the reality TV star, decided that, his Secretary of Transportation wrote a letter to our governor saying that the contracts that we have for our bridge, remember, Trump was threatening to take the bridge money away. He sent a letter saying that the Westmore administration is using basically VEI contractors, which could be in violation of the basically the federal law. So he's literally saying if you hire black people or people that are non-white, then you are in violation of of our DEI policies. Like this is where we are. So I saw Westmore responded, so I got to go back and see what he said. But this is just the pettiness of what I hope he said. Well, they actually are white. I hope he said something like that because it does. What does it matter as long as the bridge is being built and the bridge is safe? What does it matter if the contractor is black or white? Shouldn't they all get a fair chance? There is multiple contractors for this bridge. You have all these different companies that are going to come in to help build this bridge. There's steel. I mean, there's so many things that go on with this bridge. So it's just dumb stuff like that that really like grinds me because they use race in such a divisive way to and then to intimidate because they want to intimidate my governor. And we saw that they were trying to intimidate, Chicago. They were trying to intimidate Baltimore, which of course is Maryland, and my governor, who he was going back and forth with a few weeks ago, and then he kind of back. The thing is, Trump is a bully, so you kind of have to. It's a hard thing to balance because you have to clap back at him. He actually respects when people clap back at him. He doesn't respect when people cave. So you have Gavin Newsom. You have all these different governors that are pushing back, mayors that are pushing back. And that's why I said people need to stop expecting Congress to be the pushback. The people that push back on this, it is the people that are in state and local government that are the ones that have the power and the authority to push back and say no. I mean, Pritzker was gonna put the garbage trucks, the snow plows, so that they couldn't get in the city. I mean, you have to. The thing I always say is you have to outsmart Trump and his administration. They're not that smart, so you kind of have to outsmart whatever concocted plan that they
Well,
have
you have
come
to
up
be
with.
kind of creative because
Yeah, you have to be creative. Exactly.
they're creative in their deviousness of the ways that they will use things
Exactly.
to clamp down and to to hurt people or to bring
So you have to
just
be
pain.
smarter and you have to be smarter and a little bit more creative, like you said, to be able to finesse how to combat the bully. Because Trump is a bully. He knows what he's doing and he knows that people tend to cave because they're scared of him. But we need people to not be scared of him. We need people to stand up because most of these people that have stood up to him, they are winning in the courts. They are winning their cases in court. But the people that are just kind of acquiescing and just like, oh, well, we just want to avoid this, they look stupid. They look stupid in this moment. And you can't go too far and you can't go you can't not do anything, but you kind of have to strike a balance and that's really hard. But we have to fight back in different ways. And the way we fight back is not going to be the same way on the federal side where Democrats really don't have any power. Chuck Schumer has the power. Like I said today, they filibustered the continuing resolutions. That is a power that they had. He was stopping nominations. I've just put that video out earlier. He was stopping nominations. They had to go change the entire rule so that they could get around what he was trying to do. So there is ways that Democrats are fighting back, but Hakeem Jeffries has no power. He has none, nothing. You can criticize him for if you feel like he should be, endorsing Mamdani, but when it comes to the Congress, to his people, he is doing his job. In the same way I feel for Schumer, you can criticize him for whatever. There's many things that I criticize him for, but when it comes to this particular thing, the last time you caved, you didn't cave this time. So where do we go from here? We just have to kind of watch what people are doing, but not everyone is going to fit into this like box of what you want them to do. We kind of have to, there's different ways to approach
Yeah,
different fights.
right. And like I said, I one of the things I loved about what you talked about because it's kind of my thing. The local level is where a lot of power that people don't realize that they actually have, and where you can get involved because you can you write Trump if you're not agreeing with him, he's not paying any attention to you. Um, but at your local level, you're going to have more of a chance of being heard. of like what you say matter because you can vote. You know what I'm saying? You can vote or not vote for him, but there is first of all like just that local understanding of what's going on, and it's also a place where you can find other organizations to kind of
To help,
get
yeah.
with to yeah to amplify it and to give you even more creative ways to make your concerns heard and to get the attention of the people in
And the
your
elected
area.
officials. Yeah,
Exactly.
because even here, like he was talking about data centers. So in Prince George's County, they opened the data center and the people took to the streets and they protested. And the county executive went back because she said we won't be opening any more of these centers. So people have to utilize their voices and they have
Hmm.
to you know convince these elected people because a lot of times elected officials are making decisions and not thinking of the consequences. Yeah, it's great to have a new business in this local, territory, but also what is the impacts to the environment? They should be thinking about this, but sometimes they don't. And so it's on the people, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, get in front of it and go. And it made her fall back. Because guess what? She's up for reelection next year. And she knew that if she
Exactly.
that you there are ways to pressure people, but you have to do it in a smart way. It's like just don't just going out there and just screaming is not going to pressure. You have to bring that smoke to the person and understand how to do it. Like you said, using organizations, using people that are skilled at this, going to the media. Local media wants to cover these stories, and the national media
Yeah.
wants to cover Trump, but the local media wants to cover, what is happening in the local area.
And they
That
will talk
requires to
to
do that. Yeah.
and they will talk to you because when my cousin was running for a county commission seat and the constitutional Republicans were doing some very undemocratic things, I mean, he called me. He started coming, Blaze Gainey. He started coming to the Twitter Spaces chat that we had to keep up with what's going on. They will because they want to know what's going on. And unlike some of these politicians or whatever, they realize like it's the people in the community. That's where you get the story. And so they do want to know what is happening and they will cover it. And I mean, sometimes you can write op-eds, you can, you know, contact them, but there are ways to get your voice heard. I feel like
Absolutely.
sometimes just screaming and pounding on the keyboard, coming up with funny memes or whatever, it doesn't even matter whether you have a gazillion followers or not. It's not probably moving the dial. I mean, you got to
No,
do some of
it's
this stuff in real life. Yeah.
yeah, real life and have a purpose. I think that's the part that, like, what's the purpose? Because if you don't know your purpose, you're just screaming to scream. Like
Yeah,
to do
spinning
some
your
these
wheels. Yeah.
like to do something thing drives me crazy because some of the things that you want, these people can't even do. So, be realistic about it too. But I think, like I said, I truly believe that all politics is local and we have to start focusing on that. I made a post the other day, like, please focus on your state and local government. A lot of people don't want to get national politics is what many people want to talk about or what they base their feelings on. But what is happening in your local area is so much more important. Help the people that are running for office go to meetings. Like they just sent me something because they're about to like fix
They
the police
need people
station.
to help them. They will
Yeah,
invite you in.
exactly. They sent me a letter. They sent me a letter from my county saying like, "Hey, we're having a meeting." Like, how many people actually go to those meetings to hear about the ordinances and all these different things? I mean, I typically I wouldn't go, but maybe because they sent me the message, I'm like, "Hey, maybe I will go and hear what they have to say because this could impact whatever it may be." We had an issue with housing and these people were pissed about it and they had a whole like town hall about it and the city council, they voted it down. Like, you would have to make your voice heard. If there's something you're passionate about, go make your voice heard. And I think that's the point that I'm trying to make and the point that you're making. is we are screaming about Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries or even Trump is not gonna change anything because these people they're in a DC bubble. We have to focus on the local bubble that we're in. The police, or the police, like Trump doesn't care about police, right? He wants to bring the National Guard in, but the police are run by the city, right? They're funded by the state. That's who you need. If that's what your concern is, the schools, the housing in your area, like all of these things are impacted. Yeah, there's nothing we're going to be able to do about tariffs. We can't change tariffs, but even like little things that I'm seeing, like I made a post about the COVID test. There are stores that are just price gouging the hell out of us. Like I don't really shop at Target anymore, like very rarely. But COVID tests, which is something we took for granted, we got them for free during the Biden administration, right? We knew every couple of months we could get a couple boxes. This week I wasn't feeling good. I had to get a COVID test. I look online and I see that Target is charging $32 for those Binex tests, which I used to get free from the Biden administration. But Walmart, I'm sorry, Walgreens is 23.99 and CVS is 18.99. Why do we have such price dive? Like why is it so like
Hmm.
diversity of price? Like these should be things that are around the same price. So Target is price gouging you because they don't have any sales. Because guess what? We boycotted their ass for the most part. And so now they're trying to make up that money. In COVID tests, really? Come on.
Yeah, yeah, like exactly. And I appreciate you pointing that out because we do, like you said, there are so many things to focus on locally, the things that actually are in, that are impacting you. Because, like I said, there's so many things going on around here, and Elon is all up in our business here. I can't stand the man. That's why, I watch how I move on his app. I do want to say one thing that you said, talk to people in the DM. Like he already said, like, they are combing the timeline, but they will get to the DM. So just be mindful
Mindful.
of where you are. And the other thing is also, like I know a lot of people left the app, when he bought it. And I mean, I moved some of my activity that I was doing there, but I stayed there because I think that it is important for us to fight everywhere. But it's just about being safe and understanding the field on which you're fighting to be able to keep yourself safe and to also to not put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, I'm across many platforms. Tip is as well. We're on some that the other ones isn't, and that's okay. I think we do need to be everywhere and be messaging and seeing what messaging is happening in these other corners or whatever to know what is going on. And I was really heartened to this week. I caught one of Heather Cox Richardson's political chats on YouTube, and it was nice to hear her actually saying that because she's someone I used to, the history nerd in me used to watch, like talks and things that she would have, but now she has a regular, daily political chat on there. And I didn't really realize how active she was and what a big following she had on like Facebook and other people that I have relationships with, like, some of my Tennessee board members, they used to be talking about Heather's Herd or whatever. And I was like, who's that? And then come to realize over time that this is the same person. Long story short, she is basically saying that she is trying to grow her YouTube channel, as am I, as you are, and Kenny and Zach, because she sees what is happening and understands that it is important that we kind of have our content not to put all of our eggs in one basket. And I used to say that a lot. So I think this is another important moment to remind people of that, to help support folks on the various different platforms and for those who are content creators or whatever to not put all of your eggs in one basket or on one platform. Because at the end of the day, all of these guys, like Mark Andreessen is part of the ownership of this thing, like they have money everywhere, and most of them are very linked to Trump. He was they were there at its inauguration. So, we don't know what they will do at his bidding or what they will do on their own. Like with Elon, like he's greedy. He has his own agenda or whatever. And so, like the man has access to a lot of our data. I just am not
Sure
trying
does.
to help him. And I'm just being aware, like I said, of the battlefield that I'm playing on when I'm over on Twitter. He's not gonna run me off. Like I said, I'll be there
Yeah,
to
I'm not worried. I'm not too worried about Elon. I mean, yeah, he's a nut, but listen, there's multiple fronts that we have to fight on, like you said, whether it's, and listen, I don't like Mark Zuckerberg either, but I know that there are people on Insta. I don't really watch, I just don't like Facebook, but at least on Instagram and Threads, there is an audience there. Some people left Twitter and went to Threads. There's I don't like Blue Sky either, but I still have my account there. I will post my videos there. And so everybody, there's an opportunity. You never know who you're. That's the thing about content creation. You really never know who you're going to reach or who's going to see it and who is going to take the message from what you're trying to say. So in some cases, I will have more views. I have a much smaller account on YouTube and on Instagram, but yet I will get just as many views or more on than I will on TikTok. So it's like you never really know where something will catch on, and I think that's the beauty of having multiple accounts so that you can kind of see what message carries to other people or what will work in some arenas and what won't work in others. And you kind of just go from there. So, hey, just like you said, diversify the portfolio, see where it lays. I like Substack. I finally wrote something last week. I haven't been able to write in a
I
while.
and you did a great job with that article. Like I was on here a year before I actually really started writing actively. I'm still getting the feel of it, but I really do like it. And I like that there are so many different ways. Like if you want to write, if you want to do lives,
That's
just
what I like
post
to.
video. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no, that's what I like to. Because I naturally like to write, and so it's like, but I have to have the time to do it. So yes, last weekend I went to that event, and I was like, you know what, let me write my experience on what happened because it's hard to convey that in a video. Even if I was to talk about it, it wouldn't capture kind of the intent of the purpose of why I went there. So I took my
hmm
time and I did that. So I think everybody has like a story to tell or they have things that they are good at. I'm a better writer than I am a speaker, but I just don't have the time to write. And props to people who write on Substack like every single day or write stuff. Even I see like my friend Connor Lamb wrote an amazing article was it this morning? I think that he was published about John Fetterman. And there's things like that that I wouldn't see on Twitter because it's so short form that I could see
right.
it long form on here and kind of get the gist of what the person is trying to convey. So there's, like I said, there's many ways for us to communicate. I would love to continue to grow my platform here, especially on YouTube, TikTok, all of these different platforms, but it's hit or miss. YouTube is the hardest. I think that is the hardest one to crack. It really, really is.
And I've been there a long time, even before I started having these political conversations and stuff. When I was doing my skincare business and things like that, I used to put how to DIY
Hardest place
videos and
ever.
things. Yes, it really is. But I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that a little bit before we wrapped up. Apologize for the noise. I told you these renovations are going on forever. It's like, oh
I
my
could barely
God.
hear
But
it. Yeah, I could barely hear it. It's all good.
I do, like I said, enjoy being able to kind of, chat here with you. I feel like our audience is growing, and we appreciate all of you guys for joining us. And if you're not aware, follow, Candidly Tip on all the platforms. I think she is on, as you said, Blue Sky, X,
Everything.
YouTube, TikTok, Threads, and
Name it,
IG.
I got it. Yeah, all of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, follow me on all of them. And we'll see what 2 weeks looks like because every 2 weeks, Miss D, we get on here and it's like we're like shaking our head because so much happens in 2 freaking weeks. And in 2 weeks, we may actually be in a shutdown. So I'll close with that. Pay attention to what is happening with the shutdown. We may, in fact, be in a shutdown come this time next well, the next time we meet, which is on the 3rd. So
Yeah.
we will see what happens. If they go on recess, it makes it a whole lot harder. I don't think Trump wants to negotiate anything, but we have to put his back against the wall and make him do something. And if he wants to shut it down, then let him shut it down. It is what it is. And
I mean, it's not like
unfortunately,
they're really helping us. The government is really helping us. I
they're
mean, I
not
feel
doing
like
much.
they're
Yeah, they're
just
not. They're just there. They are
helping
more.
their billionaires.
They're helping the billionaires and they are out for revenge. That's what it is. It's a whole
Hmm.
revenge plot. So it would just suck for, for people in the military, people who won't get paid, people who will be furloughed. That's the bigger concern. Not the federal government will work however it's going to work, but it does suck when it does impact people personally. So that will be the problem. But listen, if Trump wants to go there, then I guess we're going to go there. It is what it is.
Exactly. And we just have to, like be prepared. Be prepared, folks, so we're not caught off guard. Anything's possible with these guys. Again, I thank you for joining Tip and I on this Fired Up Friday. You can follow me on X, on Blue Sky, on YouTube, Advocacy Arena. And I also have a podcast. And the current series I'm doing is Conversation, Connections and Conversations. And that is on all of the platforms wherever you're getting your podcast. So just support us and these independent voices that are out here because there is a very active effort right now going on to stop, you know, information. And right now, information is our friend, being informed as a citizen, because, my mission is to get people civically engaged. Knowledge is power, and they are trying to stop the channels and the funnels for that. So it's important that you find these resources, and Tiff and I feel like, are great resources for information. And you can be sure that the receipts and the things that we give you have been checked and verified. So follow folks like us, help us to grow our channels and our reach. And we thank you for coming to join us this week. And we look forward to seeing you back here joining us in 2 weeks. And you can catch us in a lot of other places. Tiff has a Wednesday that she does with Kenny and Zach on YouTube, the Big Three, every Wednesday. And she does, promote and show the links and the time. So just help us out, folks. And we thank you for being here with us and hanging out with us today. So have a great
Bye.
weekend. All
All
right.
right. Bye.
Bye.